Have you ever met someone who seemed to disappear, not from the world, but from the competition? One year they were working overtime, talking about promotions, obsessing over productivity, always planning their next move. Then somehow they changed. They stopped trying to impress everyone. They stopped measuring themselves against people they barely knew. They bought fewer things, worked fewer hours, smiled more often, and although their life looked smaller from the outside, they seemed strangely more alive. Most people assume these people gave up. But what if they actually woke up? What if they simply realized they had been chasing a finish line that kept moving? Daniel didn't always think this way. For nearly 10 years, he believed success was something you collected. Degrees, promotions, money, recognition. He treated life like a checklist. Every achievement crossed off another box. Every goal led to another goal. And every time he accomplished something, he expected to feel different, more confident, more complete, more secure. Sometimes he did, for a few days, maybe a few weeks, but the feeling always disappeared. The excitement faded, the achievement became normal, and before long, his mind had already found something else to chase. At first, Daniel blamed himself. Maybe he wasn't grateful enough, maybe he wasn't ambitious enough, maybe he simply hadn't reached the real level of success yet. So he worked harder. He accepted more responsibility, stayed later at the office, answered emails before breakfast, checked messages before sleeping. His calendar became completely full. Ironically, the fuller his schedule became, the emptier he felt. One evening he returned home after another exhausting day. He stood in the middle of his apartment without turning on the lights. The silence felt unfamiliar. His phone vibrated. Another email, another request, another reminder that tomorrow would look exactly like today. Instead of answering, he simply stared out the window. Across the street, an elderly man was watering flowers on a tiny balcony. There was nothing impressive about him. No expensive clothes, no luxury apartment, no obvious signs of success. Yet he looked peaceful. Daniel couldn't remember the last time he had looked peaceful. That thought stayed with him. A few weeks later, his company held an annual awards ceremony. People applauded, managers gave speeches, awards were handed out. Daniel received one too. Everyone congratulated him. His coworkers smiled. His parents called that evening to say how proud they were. But while holding the trophy, he noticed something strange. He wasn't happy. He was relieved that he had done enough, relieved that people still respected him, relieved that he hadn't fallen behind. Suddenly he realized he wasn't chasing success. He was running away from inadequacy. Those are not the same thing. The next morning, Daniel asked himself a question he had never considered before. If nobody could see my life, would I still make the same decisions? The question made him uncomfortable, because he already knew the answer. Many of his choices had nothing to do with what he genuinely wanted. They were shaped by invisible expectations. He bought certain things because successful people owned them. He worked certain hours because ambitious people were supposed to. He accepted opportunities because saying no felt irresponsible. Little by little, he had stopped making decisions. Instead, he had been following a script. Psychologists often describe human beings as deeply social creatures. For thousands of years, our survival depended on belonging to a group. Being respected meant safety. Being accepted meant survival. Our brains evolved to constantly monitor our social position. That ancient system still exists today. The only difference, our tribe is no longer 30 people around a campfire. It's thousands of strangers on our phones. Every achievement someone shares, our brain quietly compares. Every success story, our brain calculates where we stand. We don't even notice it happening. It feels automatic, because it is. Daniel began observing this process inside himself. Whenever someone announced a promotion, his mood changed. Whenever an old classmate bought a house, he questioned his own progress. Whenever someone his age seemed more accomplished, he felt unexpectedly anxious. Nothing in his own life had changed, only the comparison had. That's when he realized something important. Comparison doesn't tell you how well you're doing. It tells you who you're looking at. The more he understood this, the more carefully he chose where to place his attention. He stopped opening social media first thing every morning. Instead, he walked outside before work. The first morning felt painfully boring. His mind wanted stimulation, news, notifications, something exciting. Instead, there was only birdsong, cool air, people walking their dogs, a child riding a bicycle. Ordinary life. For the first time in years, Daniel noticed how uncomfortable silence made him. Not because silence was empty, because silence left him alone with himself, and he had spent years avoiding that. Over the next several months, small things started changing. He cooked dinner instead of ordering takeout. He read books without turning every page into self-improvement. He visited his parents more often. He spent weekends hiking instead of answering emails. None of these activities made him richer. None of them increased his status. None of them looked impressive online. Yet each one made his life feel slightly more real. Eventually, Daniel noticed something surprising. His ambition hadn't disappeared. It had changed direction. Instead of trying to become more impressive, he wanted to become more present. Instead of accumulating achievements, he wanted to accumulate meaningful days. That shift transformed everything. Success stopped being something other people measured. It became something he experienced for himself. Months passed. Daniel's life looked almost identical from the outside. He still had a good job. He still worked hard. He still showed up every morning. But internally, something had started to shift. Instead of automatically saying yes to every opportunity, he began asking a different question. Will this make my life better, or only make it look better? At first, the difference seemed almost impossible to notice. More money certainly looked better. A better title looked better. A larger office looked better. People admired those things. But admiration had become something Daniel no longer completely trusted, because every time he achieved one goal, another one quietly appeared. The finish line never stayed where it was. It simply moved farther away. Then one afternoon, his manager invited him into the office. There was another promotion waiting, higher income, greater responsibility, a larger team. The opportunity Daniel had imagined for years. Everyone assumed the answer would be yes. Even Daniel almost said yes out of habit. Instead, he asked for a few days to think. That evening, he walked through a nearby park without his phone. Children were playing soccer. An elderly man sat alone, reading a newspaper. A young couple laughed over coffee on a bench. Nobody there seemed concerned about promotions. Nobody looked like they were trying to prove anything. For a long time, Daniel simply watched ordinary people living ordinary lives. And then a strange thought crossed his mind. Almost every memory that truly mattered to him had happened outside the office. Conversations with his father, road trips with friends, Sunday breakfasts with his mother, watching the rain from his apartment window, late-night laughter over absolutely nothing. None of those moments had improved his resume, yet they had quietly built his life. For years, he had sacrificed those moments to create a future he rarely stopped to enjoy. That realization changed everything. A few days later, Daniel politely declined the promotion. His manager couldn't understand it. His coworkers thought he had become less ambitious. Some friends even warned him that he would regret the decision later. Daniel didn't argue with them, because he finally understood something important. People don't judge your choices. They judge them according to the life they personally want. Their definition of success doesn't have to become yours. Driving home that evening, Daniel expected to feel fear. Instead, he felt relief. For the first time in many years, he had made a decision that wasn't driven by comparison. It wasn't driven by pressure. It wasn't driven by the need to impress anyone. It came from something much quieter, clarity. And perhaps that is what real confidence actually is. Not believing every decision will be perfect, but trusting yourself enough to choose the life that feels meaningful, even when it doesn't make sense to everyone else.